Another OG veteran that's been in Medarot S since its very launch date, but has been around much longer than that actually. It is ARO00 Sea Catcher, with a kit of triple wave, sea legs, and the leg ability of Pupa, which grants a damage reduction when meeting us and maintaining a certain Metaforce threshold. Now, Sea Catcher is a model that's been available, as I mentioned, since Medarot S's day of launch, so he's a model that anyone playing longer than a week has probably seen at least one or two parts of already, and if you haven't, I'd honestly consider your luck somewhat interesting to that point. But when it comes to what Sea Catcher can do on the field, he definitely tries to make it a point to guarantee that anyone he's fighting is probably going to end up slower than him, and bank on that fact to live as long as possible. Wave is a negative ailment that, when inflicted on the enemy, will cut their heat and cool stats by about 25%, as well as inflict them with no dodge, if I recall correctly, which means that all hits are guaranteed to land no matter what. And if it's not that, it's no defend, which is guaranteeing all hits to be crits. Sea Legs also means that Sea Catcher will have moderately good mobility across most terrains. It's arguably one of the third best in my personal opinion, behind Multi and Biped. But of course, when it comes to Sea Legs, while the mobility may not be there, the evade certainly is. With an evade of about 1480 at just shy of 1500, he definitely will have a pretty solid time dodging a lot of low success attacks and even maybe some mid-tier success attacks to a point. And that's of course excluding any modifiers to make this go even higher. With a mobility of 516 though, he's definitely not going to be the fastest on the field. So even on aquatic-based terrains, which will be his mastery, and which is also one of the big advantages of Sea Legs, you don't expect him to get anywhere anytime quickly. With his armor actually isn't too shabby either. Kind of expected of a permanent banner model, so not super great, but also not terrible either. With a head armor of just shy of 3050, arms at about 2900 each is kinda squishy but not terrible, and legs at just barely 4000. A lot of the armor he has is definitely going to be in his legs, but that's unfortunately where he falls short. While he may have very good base evade as a sea leg, his resist stats are definitely not up to snuff. A melee resist of just barely 850 means he will be taking a pretty noticeable amount of incoming damage from melee strikes, but his shoot resist is even worse than that at not even 600 at a flat 585. So he definitely does not have damage reduction going in his favor compared to most other sea legs, even of the permanent pool. Now, of course, this is excluding the pupa effect that goes in and will reduce about 20% or so of incoming damage once he can maintain a certain Metaforce threshold. And it is also worth noting that Sea Catcher's legs can support up to 2 heavy parts on a kit that actually has none. So, that being said, as a pure set score, I do still have to rate Sea Catcher a pretty flat 4.5 out of 10. Not to say that he's terrible, because Wave can have some very considerably good uses if you time it right, but because he has the same ailment on all 3 skills, that does kind of hurt his overall viability, as if he can inflict Wave on everyone, that's kind of it for him. He really has no other reason to be on the field after everyone's been stuck with it. And if the enemy team is packing Stat Cleanse, that makes him entirely worthless. There is really nothing he can bring to the field outside of Wave that could possibly forgive an opponent using Stat Cleanse to keep him off their tail. As mixed parts though, I do have to rate him higher at a 5 out of 10, and at that point kind of a middle of the road kind of bot. So while triple wave may not be super great, one of his arms or his head is still good to have on hand just for the sake of having it, because it is still a good ailment to use. Even if it is for the no dodge or no defend, just for the ability of being able to debuff their heat and cool by 25% can give you that make or break chance to even possibly just barely outrun that dangerous foe and cripple them or take them out faster than before they have the chance to take you out. Plus, even if his sea legs don't have the greatest resist stats on planet Earth, they do have notably high armor, and the fact they can support 2 heavy parts is something I feel may forgive that to a point, but only if you exercise very careful caution if you are making use of him.